Hello and welcome to Quilt Addicts Anonymous. I'm Stephanie Soebbing. Today we are doing another video in our free motion quilting series, which is designed to take you from being really intimidated from free motion quilting to having 4 stitches that you know really well and you know how to customize to create different looks that are custom to each quilt that you do. Our goal is to be able to get you to finish more quilts in 2022 by using these techniques. Just as a reminder, we've got a pattern that you can follow along with. It has instructions for putting the top together first so you can long arm it, or doing it quilt as you go so it's easier to manage on your home sewing machine. And we've also got the stencil packs, which give you the 4 stencils to teach you the muscle memory of the designs that we're going to be doing and then branching off from there. And then also the pounce pads so you can transfer it easily to your quilt that you're working on. And then also we have quilt kits in 4 different colors. So no matter what your taste, we got something that I bet you'll love. You can get all that over at shop.quiltaddictsanonymous.com. All right, so in the last video, we did a swirl. We used a stencil for that. And we did sort of the classic swirl where it comes in and it comes out and has this little pokey part and it just looks really cool. Today, we're gonna simplify that a little bit for when we do it ourselves with free motion. So we're gonna grab our trusty whiteboard. You can also use scratch paper, that works just fine too. And I'm gonna talk about how to do this one. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna come in and we're gonna do a swirl coming in, and then we're gonna work our way out, and then we're gonna do another swirl. Now you can change the directions of your swirls, but the goal here is to be able to go kind of back and forth a little bit so that you don't have a straight line going up and down. So that way we can kind of create the movement that we had before. And you don't have to go up and down exactly like we did, like I went kind of back and forth there. But the idea is to be able to kind of fill that space in evenly. Like this isn't ideal because as I filled in this part here, we kind of got a little smaller in size. We stretched everything out a little bit. This whole section here is a lot better because I moved around the board or the quilt a lot better. I was able to go left to right, up and down, go all around. You want it to be really kind of random in the way that you make it work. And in all of these, all the kind of waves are kind of all going the same direction. They're all kind of going to the right. They kind of swirl in and then they come back out. And your goal here is basically to just move all around, not cross over, try to keep everything about the same scale. If you can do that, you're going to be great. Now, I do recommend practicing quite a bit on your whiteboard or your scratch paper because you want to learn how to move around the quilts and the quilt block before you go do it with needle and thread. But we're going to get going with that right now. Now, whenever I'm working on my domestic sewing machine, I kind of like to work up and down. When I am working and then like left to right, I kind of do the same thing when I'm on the long arm too. I just usually am able to quilt a little bit larger scale easier when I'm on the long arm than when I'm on the domestic. All right, so we've got one really close to the edge here. Now for this next one, I'm gonna come out a little bit. That way we don't have a straight line. It's gonna look a little bit more random as we're filling it in. And then as we work our way back, up the other side, we're going to be able to fill those bits in. Just like we did with the stencil, just we're making our own decisions about where we're going. And just like before, it's best if you can stop when you're at a point to reposition your hands. All right, that was a really weird one because I was kind of thinking about when I was going to reposition my hands and talking to you guys instead of being in the moment. And I've said this before as we've done the series, you've got to be in the moment. That's really hard to do for me as I'm teaching this because I'm trying to talk through what I'm doing as I'm doing it. And so sometimes I don't get my best quilting when I'm doing it that way. But I think it's an important lesson to learn and to show you guys that when I screw up, it's because I'm thinking about something else. I'm not thinking about what I'm doing right then and there in that moment. coming down to the bottom here, my goal is to not go off of the edge. Whenever you're not using a stencil, you can sort of change where everything is going and maybe make things a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, so you can fit the space a little better. And it's good practice for when you're later doing this as like a background filler. So now I'm going to loop around back, and now I'm going to work my way back. I always find it a little bit harder to go backwards on the domestic because you can't see as easily where you're going next. When it's all in front of the machine, it's very easy to kind of know, okay, this is kind of where I'm going. But it's a little harder when you're going backwards. All right, so I'm going to try to come up here, and rather than do my next swirl right next to it, I'm going to kind of come around over here to the right, just like that. And then when I loop around for the next one, I'm going to fill in that nice empty area to the left. That way I can kind of work my way back up. And we'll fill in that empty area towards the end of the block when we come back down the other side. And if you're kind of able to stagger a little bit so that your swirls aren't right next to each other, like they're not on the exact same plane, like they're not super level with each other, it's a lot easier to hide any mistakes when you're all done. Now, when you're getting started, that's probably going to happen without you even trying, because you're probably not going to be capable of quilting exactly right on where you were at before. The goal here is mostly just to fill everything in nice and evenly, so it isn't super obvious when you're just looking at it where your passes were. Obviously, if you examine anything closely, you'll be able to figure that out. But to the casual observer, we don't want them to be able to tell that, oh, they did swirls straight in this line. We want to stagger it and go back and forth. Now remember, we have some area to fill in from that very first one as well. And make sure we're doing that as we're working around here. So when I work my way out from the center here, I'm going to leave a little bit of space at the top because I need to come back that way after I fill in this section here. So we're going to come here, do our swirl. And then I just kind of travel over top. And this is like the one time that I'll do that extra little bit. It's a way to sort of fill in and make it look like I meant to kind of travel that way. All right, we're just going to keep making our way up and down, back and forth, filling in as we go. So we have our entire space filled. Feeling more confident, this is a really easy one to kind of speed it up with. Got a little close, but you know what, it's not the end of the world. Alright, let's slow down a little bit. I gotta fill in here. Can't just go on autopilot going back and forth like I was. I'll pop in, do that little swirl there. Alright, this is a little bigger than I probably should go. I'm gonna try and get two, I think, going back and forth here. That one didn't make it all the way around, but it's more important that you don't quilt yourself into a corner. And go a little wider here so we can fill that in. And this set we'll do a little smaller so we can fit two. Fill in. I want to end at that corner. All right, now I could just swoop out, but I'm going to swoop kind of to the side like that, so it kind of looks like I'm going into another swirl as I go. All right, so here we go. We have our simplified swirl. Is it perfect? Nope. When I started going a little faster, it took me a little bit to get that rhythm quite set. And I got two here that are really funky, but then I figured it out and it was looking good. Also, you know, we were a little squirrely on the side here in order to fit it in and try and keep the same scale. Those are all things that you kind of learn as you go. And even after years and years and years of quilting, sometimes you still have to adapt to make it work, just like I did with this one. Now, I bet you this is one where the actual one that I do in the long arm is going to look a lot smoother. This is a stitch I have a lot easier time doing on the long arm. As for me, it's a lot easier to do this than it is to do this when you're working on your domestic. Also, I can see where I'm going a lot better because your field of vision isn't like blocked to whatever's right here. You can see a lot further on the quilt. So for me, that's just a lot easier. But again, I'm on the long arm almost exclusively. And so it's just a different skill set. If you get really good at domestic, you might have a really hard time translating that to the long arm and vice versa. So it's totally a matter of what works for you. All right, I hope you're enjoying the series. I hope you are growing as a free motion quilter. And just as a reminder, we have all of the goodies you need in order to take this course over on our website. We have the stencil kits if you just want to get that and use your own fabric. We have the quilt kits using all the solid fabrics in 4 different colorways so that we can pick one that works with your preferred colorway. And then we have the pattern that shows you how to do it both as quilt as you go for your domestic, and then also putting everything together to start with so you can work on your long arm. Alrighty, well that is it for today's video. Until next time, happy quilting.